Good, thank you. Thank you for attending today. It's lovely to see you all. I am, as you just heard, my name is Kathy Ferguson. I teach in political science and women's studies at the University of Hawaii, where I've been for 22 years, and before that I taught for a decade at Siena College in upstate New York. I have several kind of research agendas going right now that feed into these questions about resistance. The one that I'm going to draw on directly today is the work I do with my colleague Phyllis Turnbull on the military in Hawaii. But I'm also have been working for actually an embarrassingly large number of years on a book about Emma Goldman, and that also, of course, raises many interesting questions about resistance. And then I also have an interest in gender and globalization in Asia and the Pacific. And then finally, what seems like an odd topic to combine with those is that I'm very interested in dyslexia and in how different learning practices are marginalized in school systems and become abnormal, and so hierarchy gets produced. So today I'm drawing primarily, as I said, from the work that Phyllis and I have done. We did this book in 1999, Oh Say Can You See? We love the title, The Semiotics of the Military in Hawaii. And what I want to do in this talk is to share with you some of the theoretical tools that are helping us to come to terms with the particular site of resistance or sites of resistance that we see around us in Hawaii in relationship to the military. Too close here. You're seeing one person here, but you're hearing two voices. So here's what we are after. Ways to study the how of resistance. We really want to put resistance into circulation around how questions, processes, effects, ground level techniques, practices that help us get at the ongoingness, the temporality of resistance. Then we want to think about how to put that how into broader circulation, how to share that with a variety of different publics and in the process contribute to creating publics. And then lastly, I'm sure not lastly, there's probably 50 more of these, I just picked out 3. We want to think about ways to infuse resistance with creativity and joy. The military and militarism more broadly is an awesome opponent. They win because they have fear, death, and a culture of martyrdom and sacrifice on their side. Resistance, we think, needs a culture of affirmation. It needs many sources, from Nietzsche's vitalism to pagan religions to any number of ways to tap a positive energy. And in this paper, we're going to look at art as one of those sources of the kind of love and strength that a positive culture of resistance could draw on. Now, in order to make any sense out of what I'm going to say, there are a few things you need to know about Hawaii. So this is the 2-cent version of what you need to know about Hawaii. First of all, the Hawaiian monarchy was overthrown in 1893 by a coalition of American and European businessmen, planters, newspaper editors, and sons of missionaries. The common joke in Hawaii is the missionaries came to do good and ended up doing well. This overthrow was accomplished with the backup of the U.S. Marines. So Hawaii went from being an internationally recognized independent government to being a territory of the United States and became the 50th state in 1959. Mainstream histories, still very widely used, portray Hawaiians as happy to be a part of the United States, but newer research by Hawaiian scholars, mostly young, who are able to write and read and speak Hawaiian, come up with a very different history. The near total opposition of Hawaiians to the overthrow and the incorporation of the United States. They brought out the evidence of that, and then considerable opposition to statehood a half a century later. In many ways, Hawaii is still a colony, dependent economically and politically on the mainland. Our economy is based on tourism, the military, and construction. Those are our three, we say our three biggest industries, they're our three only industries. We are the most militarized state in the United States. The military owns or controls about 25% of the island of Oahu, which is where Honolulu is. That's where most of the people live. About 10% of the entire state. A big jump was just taken in military control because a striker brigade, you're familiar with the strikers, they're these large vehicles that are inadequately armored and are very vulnerable to the improvised explosive devices in Iraq. We have a fleet of 291 of them now. So there's been a big jump, really the biggest increase in militarism on our island since World War II, just in the last few years. We are the most environmentally fragile state. We are often called the endangered species capital of the United States. The Hawaiians, when they talk about the loss of species, they say, as they go, we go, to talk about the link between Hawaiian culture and the natural environment. And while Native Hawaiians are a marginalized and oppressed people, they are also a very strong political voice. It's very interesting to live in a place in which, unlike a great deal of the rest of the U.S., not all of it, but a great deal of the rest of it, the Native people weren't marched off to another place, they weren't put on a reservation. I'm sorry, I'm spitting at that thing. They're still there. After many, many decades of having their culture suppressed, there's been a Hawaiian Renaissance, so the language is coming back. We offer a master's degree in Hawaiian language. It's the only master's degree in an indigenous language in the United States. Excuse me. There's a renaissance of dance, literature, art, and an episodic but respected and, one might say, feared political presence. All right, so that's my 2 cents for you to get a little bit of an insight into Hawaii and to try to dislocate a little bit what the frame that most people occupy when they think about Hawaii, which is, of course, the tourist frame. The beautiful beaches and the lovely skies and the swaying palm trees and the grass skirts. And that's, of course, carefully cultivated by the Hawaii Visitors Bureau with many millions of dollars of state subsidies. But a very different political Hawaii stands behind that. All right, now let me pull out just 2 theorists that are sources for us of the ideas of how to theorize this interesting, appalling, complicated process by which an island in the middle of the Pacific becomes a state and becomes the most militarized state. How does that happen, and then how do the protests against that make their way? So I could have chosen Deleuze or Judith Butler or Wendy Brown. Many people have engaged in conversation, but I'm going to pick instead Foucault and Rancière and just talk very briefly about how these 2 theorists have helped us to think about resistance. From Foucault, we draw on his idea of the local character of resistance. He says, in this lovely quote from 2 lectures, he says, "Not obtuse empiricism, not soggy eclecticism, or self-imposed asceticism, but an autonomous, non-centralized kind of theoretical production, one that is to say, whose validity is not dependent on the approval of established regimes of thought." Okay, so that tells us, look locally, look at the ground, look at things coming up from horizontal spaces. The kind of genealogies that we have tried to do of resistance are very much grounded in the particular places and times. Foucault has this interesting characterization of genealogy as gray, patient, and meticulous, and I think I like that